Bob and Kel CleverCast for July 13th. Time is just flying. You know how I know that time is flying? Because Allison Mack's already out of prison. Are you familiar with Allison Mack of the show Smallville?
Oh,
She was involved in the sex cult. She had to go
yeah.
to jail for it.
Yeah. Was there a documentary about that at all? I don't know.
Yes, there was. There were two of them, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
But she had a role on a show called Smallville, which was set in a kind of Anytown, USA. And I'm hoping that if they get it started again after both work stoppages, I speak to you today from the entertainment industry work stoppage capital of the world.
Right.
I'm hoping they'll work the sex cult into the small town plot. And there'll be dialogue like this. Chloe, where are you going this time of night? Oh, Keith needs me down at the sex cult. Fiscal year starts next week, and I've got a pile of paperwork. Sorry, Ma. Also, Leslie Van Houten's out of jail.
Well,
53 years, my favorite
yeah.
Manson girl.
Yeah, exactly. Was she one of the original members or one of the
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, no, she's one of yeah.
The ones they picked up along the way, so to speak.
That's big to get out after 53 years. If she would be so kind as to join us on a future CleverCast,
Oh,
I would love to interview her. And my first question to her would be, 53 years. Did it go by just like that?
you know who's just going by just like that? Theranos girl, Elizabeth Holmes. She's supposed to get out in less than 2 now or something like that. I read for good behavior.
Last I heard was 9 years, knocked down from 11. Why that is,
Okay.
I don't know.
Maybe it was knocked down 2 years or something from 2 years off her sentence.
Behavior.
So, yeah, shortened by 2. Okay.
And there was a documentary on her as well, if you saw that.
Bad Girls. Girls Gone Wild. It's a different
Yeah, Bad Sisters.
Yeah.
Watching Bad Sisters now on Apple Plus. We tried After Party and Shrinking, and we're not impressed with those, so we're sticking with Bad Sisters.
Are you going to dabble in the Ted Lasso pool or are you going to steer clear?
Oh, for goodness sake, that's one of my nevers. That's what I'm concerned about, the Emmys. Although all of my shows were nominated in some way for the Emmys, I know it's going to be one of my nevers who will win. It'll be Ted Lasso or Last of Us or The Bear, something like that. Although The Bear is tempting me now by casting Molly Gordon. I love Molly Gordon. That may be my gateway to The Bear. I don't know.
Yeah, and that Christmas episode with all the big name stars popping up, Jamie Lee Curtis and Bob Odenkirk, it'd be worth a watch. So anyway,
another question that I would like to ask Leslie Van Houten in an interview for the podcast is, what do you say, you and Leslie, you and I go to bed, and if that's the case, would you mind carving a little X in your forehead so I can feel like I'm in the Manson gang for just like half an hour?
Did they carve their own? Did they carve them in each other? Did they go to a service to have them carved in? I don't know. I'm very fascinated.
I think it was a Sharpie. I think it was just a Sharpie. It's just like one of those.
So those
one of those X's.
Those prisoners who have the swastika, it's just a Sharpie that they put on their chest and neck and that type of thing, or are they full bore? They go all out.
Well, whatever Charlie asked of them, they would do, obviously. Absolute power corrupting, absolutely.
Yes.
Another a question about a show I've warmed to. I'm into season 4. I think I'm now at episode 7 of Better Call Saul. Did you see all 6 seasons of that?
Love it. Breaking Bad and then this. Yeah, watch the whole thing.
Okay, here's my question. Apparently I missed something because Mike, played by Jonathan Banks, is collaborating with Don Hector Salamanca's rival while Don Hector is in the hospital. Mike is collaborating with his rival Kring on some sort of warehouse that they're stocking with these German ne'er-do-wells, and they built them, little bungalows and whatnot, and foosball tables. Would you happen to know what's going on there?
Well, that's they're building that for his drug empire. I mean, did you watch Breaking Bad?
I did not know.
There you go. That's a key part of Breaking Bad was that factory with the laundry pad. laundromat front and just what's going on in there. This is kind of the prequel to that, as it were, that,
I far prefer the Jimmy and Kim plot as opposed to the B plot of the cartel, which can get violent,
Oh, I know you'd like Kim.
Another question that I have for you. Did your wife or does your wife work for Bank of America?
No, she works for a bank called Huntington.
Did she ever work for Bank of America
No,
or
no.
U.S. Bank or anything like that?
U.S. Bank, one of her first jobs was as a teller at U.S. Bank when she first
Okay.
moved to this country. But
The reason
no,
I ask is Bank of America got into some Wells Fargo level trouble this week,
yes, they
doing the
did.
same kind of crap that Wells Fargo did, and they got fined like $250 million.
Have you ever had a Bank of America credit card?
No, I'm strictly a Wells Fargo guy because I'm lazy. I would love to leave them,
Uh,
but
I did. I'm wondering if I'm going to get any type of payoff.
oh, is in a class action suit?
Yeah, I recently got one from I want to say, was it Microsoft or you? I'm one of the electronic, you know, corporations. They sent me a check for $50, and I'll tell you,
Holy cow!
yeah, right. Usually it's like 2 or 3. This time it was 50. That's nothing to sneeze at.
That's almost as the most I've ever won from the lottery, and I play the lottery every week.
Are you really? You probably spent more on the lottery than a lot of other things. You
I would estimate I spend $20 a week on the lottery, roughly 1,000 a year.
for since you were
The
just a
most I've
wee
ever
one?
won is $90. And I tipped the lady who sold me the ticket at a convenience store. I tipped her $20, and you would thought I'd changed her life. My God.
Wow. Did that help any?
Uh, no, no, no. Um, and speaking of women folk and significant others, my partner is not known for her sense of humor, but she squeezed off a couple of one-liners since we last saw each other that I just have to mention. And hopefully she won't hear this. She tried the CleverCast last week and nearly ran off the road during my rant against the former wife. She'd never heard me
Oh.
unload on the former wife before, so that was she came home and she said, "Remind me to stay on your good side." And so I've just about come to the conclusion that the best way to have a wreck in your motor vehicle is to try to listen to the podcast while you're
Mhm.
driving. But one of them has to do with Wimbledon. Wimbledon made a policy change, a ruling in the past week at the request of many of the women players. They have to wear white. Wimbledon requires you to wear white, man or woman. And women came to the governing board at Wimbledon and with concerns about menstrual embarrassment and white underthings. And so Wimbledon relaxed matters and said, okay, yes, when that's happening, you can wear a dark underthings. So the very next morning, I'm on the couch. Wimbledon's on TV. I'm just using it as kind of visual muzak.
Mhm.
And she comes down the stairs, and she's not the quickest to wake up either. But I hear her say, "Holy cow! Look at this! Look who's menstruating!" And it was Sabalenka wearing dark underthings. The disadvantage to the change in policy is that if you were seen in dark underthings, it meant that it was your time of the month.
Mhm.
Kind of a stigma there. It reminded me of the macaque cage at the Minnesota Zoo.
The red
That
button.
sign that cautioned the parents about a red rump as a sign of sexual readiness.
Yes.
So you could throw a towel over your child's face, or if it
That's
was the
something
open cage area of the macaque
that's something you learned early on,
installation.
the red romp. Yes, I got it.
Yeah. Well, I would use welder's goggles to flip them down in case there was any flying simian semen. You know what I'm saying? So that was kind of the scarlet letter, if you will, the
Well,
dark underthings at Wimbledon.
I went down to Sabalenka rabbit hole today. I was started to look at her because I Googled her, and then of course all these images pop up, and pretty much all these tennis stars seem to have some sort of Instagram account where they're in pretty much next to nothing. It's kind of a fascinating deal, really. She's a nice piece of chicken, as they say.
Well, you'd love Celeb Jihad then. You should go to Celeb Jihad. They have celebrity sex tapes A to Z. Just
Oh no,
look.
I don't need the sex tape. The bikini pics are fine with me. Thank you very much.
The other one-liner that the partner was responsible for within the past week was after intimacy. If you've ever wondered how intimacy with a 72-year-old man ends, because I tend to get a little carried away, the bedroom winds up looking like there's just been a hockey fight. And you have to go around and pick up your clothes and helmets and gloves and sticks and whatnot. And so she says, so help me. I'm not creative enough to make this up. She says, it ain't over till he puts on the cardigan. That's when you know you've just had sex with a 72-year-old man.
Jeez.
So
Wow.
hats off to her for that found
Hats off,
humor.
cardigans off. I get it.
Ah,
I thought it would be, it's not over till he puts on the ball cap. That seems more appropriate.
no, I don't know that the ball cap is as much a symbol of an elderly man as the cardigan is. The cardigan is pretty much standard equipment for the elderly guy. In about 20 years, you'll find that out. Also, I don't want to get into this at length because it's just so deflating, but something happened, the last straw with my church on the live stream this past Sunday. An announcement was made that literally put me on the floor, and I'm finding out that at 72, I don't get up off the floor as quickly as I used to.
No.
Try this exercise, even at your age. Lie down on the floor and then try to get up. I guarantee you don't get up as quickly as you did when you were 30.
Yeah.
And when you're 70-something, you might not get up at all.
Yeah.
This eliminates bar fights for me in the future.
Well, that's what it is. Gosh.
Because if I go down,
hey,
any number of guys could just have their way with me while I'm on the floor trying to get up. So I have to keep my nose clean.
You're more of a lover than a fighter. Have you ever been in a bar fight?
I've only had one fight in my life.
I'm
It was in a high school parking lot.
Specifically Texas, because I feel like that's the home of the bar fight.
Texas high school parking lot. I fought Reggie Maurice for the honor of a young woman, and I'm 1 for 1, and
you got out.
That's where it stayed for the next 64 years or 54 years.
Moonlight Graham. You just got that one hit and then pretty much retired. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I should come out with my own drink, my own power drink like Logan Paul.
Oh, geez. Oh, we had that discussion here in the house because Nico drinks the Prime. He does. And it's like, yeah, I know. And so we're like, oh, man, 6 cans of Coke? That seems like a lot. He goes, no. And then we got the bottle out of the trash, and it is, fortunately, the non-caffeinated beverage. So there's like, it's heaven and hell. There's either the non-caffeinated, thank you, or there's the 6 times the regular caffeinated beverage. They have the 2 ends of the spectrum. They're the 2.
So you're telling me that it must taste better than Red Bull if the non-caffeinated version, if you'll drink that.
Yeah.
Because I heard that Full Blast high octane Prime contains 6 times the caffeine of whatever, Red Bull or coffee or whatever. That's just, that'll make your heart go pitter pat.
Right. Oh, there were a couple of times we've seen Nico with red eyes, and we were like thinking, dude, what's going on? We're thinking, are you vaping? He said he was just tired, so we'll take him for his word. But it's like, you never know what these kids are doing these days.
I forget whether it's the dreaded millennials or the dreaded Gen Z, but one of their favorite combinations of drinks is Red Bull and vodka.
Yeah, I think
and how does that work with the warring emotions going on in the brain where you're enlivened, you're energized, but you're also drunk? How does that?
I always thought they cancel each other out and you just feel totally normal.
Yeah.
I've never had a Red Bull in my life, so I can
neither.
Don't have any interest.
Neither. I think I saw my son drink one back in his migraine days that apparently the caffeine of that and an Advil or something like that would chase away a migraine that he was suffering at the time. But that was when he was in his late teens. He's way past that now, thank goodness.
I like to sleep at night.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think of this idea? I noticed that Zelensky of Ukraine spells his name with 2 Y's at the end.
Oh.
How would you feel about me adding a Y to Bobby or adding a Y to Yates? YYATS in honor of Zelensky of Ukraine. Do you think that would take off?
I think so. I thought you
That's
were
a
going
good
to go.
idea.
I thought you were going to go with the vodka joke, Sky Vodka. Doesn't that have two Y's at the end of it?
Does. That's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
Bobby with two Y's endorsing Sky with two Y's. I like that.
And throw in a couple of Y's in the Yates too. Let's go full bore on this. Bobby Yates.
I think they make Sky in the same place that they used to make Anchor Steam beer. You know, Anchor Steam is stopping brewing.
Yeah.
That was really the steam beer taste of San Francisco, and now that's going the way of all good beverages. Sapporo can't make any money from them anymore, so they're ending it.
You thought you would have kept him in business for all these many years.
No, when I used to drink that kind of stuff to excess, it was usually Foster's, which is Australian for beer.
Yes, that's true. You did like a good.
That was the night that I asked them, "Can I have another Foster's?" and they said, "Mr. Yates, I'm sorry, but you drank them all."
Oh,
You very rarely hear a weight person say that to you. Now, I don't know whether to be proud of it after all these years or not. Which brings me to this question. For the past week, or actually since July 4th, it has not let up. Every day, I hear Joey Chestnut or his woman counterpart being described as, drumroll please, an athlete. Is a professional eater an athlete? Or do they just have a tapeworm? It's like this woman this 400-pound woman who's dancing on this Jardians ad. She says she has her A1C under control. Of course she doesn't. She weighs 400 pounds. She's probably coffeed up or coked up. That's why she can dance the way she does, if you've seen that commercial. So professional eaters, if Joey Chestnut is an athlete, then I must have been close to that in the days when I was having a couple of 3 vodkas and a beer with a half pack cigarettes a day.
I mean, is it a sport? Is professional eating a sport?
To me, a sport has to have an object to chase, a ball or a puck, or something, or you swat at something, or you run after it, or you're hit by it, or you dunk it in a hoop. That's a sport. Eating's not a sport. I mean, if eating is a sport, then drinking should be a sport.
Yes.
And
you'd win a gold medal.
Arthur, remember Dudley Moore's Arthur, who was constantly drunk? He would be an athlete by that standard.
Agree. Now, I mean, it's whatever shows up on that ESPN network thing, Bob. It's like basically, poker, what the World Series of Poker is going on right now. Is that a sport? No, I don't think so. Because they're not athletes.
What about race car driving? I've heard those guys referred to as athletes. Do you think they're athletes?
I don't know. Just driving in circles. You know that my stance on that.
Driving a car. I mean, if that's considered athletics, I was an athlete today driving across town to get some videos.
Is a jockey an athlete? They're just riding a horse.
And
they're beating
there's some athletics to just staying on the horse.
Well, how about this? You said slinging a ball around. There's no way you can call a bowler an athlete. Look at him.
That's true. Well, there were some pretty heavy baseball pitchers in their day. Denny McClain and Early Wynn.
Yeah,
those guys had
modern day Sabathia and Bartolo Colon.
Exactly.
I think I still see them today. They're the big butts and long pants.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, those guys. Yeah.
Golf had some fatties.
John Daly. What's he looking like these days? Have you seen John Daly?
Oh yeah. See, that's not an athlete. I mean, I remember him back in his drinking days. He'd be strolling down the fairway of a tournament with a can of beer in one hand and a cigarette in the other. I'm sorry, that's not athletics.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, I mean, I shared that with him after a fashion, those tendencies, those tastes, but I'm sorry, I can't call it athletics any more than I could driving a car or eating 42 hot dogs.
Right.
How in the world could that possibly make a person an athlete? And my sports handicappers on the morning show out of Sportsnet LA, they do a morning show from the Circa Hotel Sportsbook every weekday morning, called him an athlete. And I just think on behalf of athletes everywhere, I was only an athlete, quote unquote, up to maybe my senior year in high school. But that just sullies
Yeah.
the good name of athletes everywhere, especially Olympians, all round athletes, hurdlers and stuff.
I'm more fascinated that little guys like Joey Chestnut and his female counterpart are so good at it, where the big, chubby, large guys with the big stomachs are the ones who struggle to finish second or third. It's like, well, why is that? You think they have more room for them, but I
Yeah,
guess that must be the athletic part of it. It's like he's trim, he's in shape, he's able
yeah.
to put them down faster. I don't know. I agree with you.
These eaters have
Um,
stretched stomachs. That's what they work on. That's how they practice. I don't know how their practice works, but they stretch their stomachs to make them
There
bigger.
you go. I'd like to watch a practice session for these.
Yeah, I like to too.
then maybe should he be wearing sweatbands? I mean,
Well,
that's just nuts.
yeah.
Um, and apropos of athletics, did you watch the Major League Baseball All-Star game?
A little bit, bits and pieces. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
just it is what I guess it was a very good game, and there were some Twins pitchers involved, which is always something. But
Yeah, your Sonny Gray showed up. He looked good,
Yeah.
I thought.
I still don't understand. I haven't done any real research why they went with Pablo Lopez instead of Joe Ryan. Joe Ryan's had the better season. I don't understand why they picked Lopez, who hasn't.
I should not have watched because it rubbed off on my subconscious, and I had an MLB dream that night after the game. Is set into the future, so apparently I lived long enough to see this happen in my dream. The L in MLB stood for lesbian, and I was the only male straight guy in the stadium, which was just full of nothing but lesbians. Straw hats, corncob pipes, overalls, just as far as the eye can see, bandanas and stuff. And so they asked that everybody rise for the playing of the lesbian national anthem. Put your bandanas over your braless hearts, that kind of thing, and join Electra Asylum recording artist Side Boob in the singing of our lesbian national anthem, which, as it turns out, is a kind of operatic version. It was sung a cappella of a 1960 a song on the top 40 playlist of that era by a one-hit wonder called The Occasions. And you may remember it. The title of the song is I'm a Girl Watcher.
Yeah, I do remember that one.
The lesbian national anthem. Hand over the heart, a cappella down by home plate with the microphone. I'm a girl watcher. I'm a girl watcher. Watching girls go by. My. The stadium is joining the singer called
Yes.
Side Boob in the singing of this. And then the final line, here comes one now. They all join in, and the applause rises beneath the last line, just like our own national anthem.
Yes.
And the home of the brave. They did the same thing with Here Comes One Now, which is the
Wow.
last line of that portion of
Raise
the
the
song.
roof. Wow. Well,
Isn't
cards
that
and
nutty how
letters.
dreams?
Please have all cards and letters directed to Mr. Bob Yates, please. Thank you.
It just occurs to me that maybe the mercenary tenor hired by our church choir is an athlete because he made a guest appearance this past Sunday in one of the latest episodes that galled me no end. And to give you some idea of what happens when you hire mercenaries, people to sing in your choir who don't give a damn about God or Presbyterians or anything else. During prayers, he'll look up at the ceiling or he'll check his phone or check his watch, that kind of thing. But he shows up with this rumpled polo shirt pulled up over his pregnant man looking belly. And he sings to us. And I turned to the partner and I just said, you know what? I would have told him to just go home, get a jacket, and then come back and see us and pretend to look like you care. Otherwise, the church should have a coat room like many classy restaurants do. If you show up without a jacket, you will be provided one. That is a policy that if I weren't leaving the church, I would recommend that they put into place.
What's the typical Bob garb when he's attending the services? Do you?
My parents, and this is where the church-going habit is embedded to me from little on.
Mhm.
I was told, dress like you might accidentally bump into Jesus.
Yeah. That sounds like a country song.
Doesn't it? But that
Oh,
kind of thing sticks with you because you're young and impressionable. And that's just stuck with me. And I've expected that of other people ever since. And show up to church, a house of worship,
oh yeah.
where God's word is read aloud, and you're wearing a ratty ass polo shirt
Oh,
to sing to me in? Are you kidding me?
I mean, I don't know if you've looked, I don't know what your church is like, but the one I've been to, like some of the teenagers show up in pajama bottoms, for gosh sakes. It
It's
just isn't
ludicrous.
right.
It's ludicrous.
That's Gen
Well,
Z.
I can also remember it. Well, you know what? I'm glad you pointed out that aspect of it, because I think my problem with this cavalier attitude, is generational. I have come to look at myself as maybe the newest variation on Clint Eastwood and El Camino. You Asian kids, get off my lawn. And so if you don't, mind your P's and Q's, respect your elders and whatnot, then you're going to hear about it from me. And so that's a very good point that you just made there about the generations. I think that
Oh,
once you start allowing Gen Z and millennials to get a foothold in your church or in your business for that matter, it's all about them. It's
right,
not going to be about the product or service. It's not going to be about God. It's going to be about them.
right. You change for
So
us, we're not going to change for you. Yeah, that's it. That's the state of the world right now.
now, my boomer generation, we were self-absorbed, but we also helped some people.
Oh,
We
yeah,
marched for civil rights. We got tried to get the U.S. out of Vietnam. The environment, the Peace Corps. So there was stuff that we did for other people. But
yeah.
these kids, they don't give a damn. Seriously. And the churches allow them in because they need their money. The gay dollar, the millennial dollar, and the Gen Z dollar are what they're after. I would gladly go to a Presbyterian church closer to me, but I checked out their live stream tape from this past Sunday, and they've got the same Flying Burrito Brothers looking high school Christian rock band playing, and it's just not the same, man. I need high church and robes and pulpits and the formality and the comfort of the sacraments and blah blah blah.
Do you have like separate services, one that's traditional and one that's non-traditional?
Used to be before COVID that existed, and now they've consolidated the services because of how the pandemic affected attendance.
I do like a good traditional service and then going and missing that one and getting just a basically an orchestra with guitars and what have you is a bit much for this guy.
Well, you wind up singing words to songs you've never heard before. The
Mhm.
words are on a screen,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's all because whatever church you're attending that day is catering to the next generation of members. In other words, mine is on the way out. They got to replace me with somebody, and the tithes and offerings from that generation. And so they're stuck with the Gen Z and millennials who just don't care. They're just using it to fill up an hour on a Sunday because they got, nothing else to do.
Speaking of funny church behavior, I went to one service once and some man made his way up to the front. And I swear, after when the pastor was giving his sermon message, what have you, and the guy would yell out, "Amen," and "Hallelujah" after everything the pastor said. And I'm like,
Yeah.
shut up. But
Yeah.
that's not the Christian thing to say. We should let him voice his opinions. But
Yeah. We have one person who has to do this for some reason. Has to put her hands up and motion toward the altar, like I don't know what she's trying to say with that.
I know.
I visited around back in the day. Fortunately, Malibu Presbyterian has had the good sense to take the Presbyterian off its name, because when I visited there, just looking for a church home where I could be comfortable, very touchy feely.
Mhm.
Hold our hands and let's do our swaying and blah blah blah. And I come from a tent revival atmosphere. The last thing I want to do is go back to that stuff. And
Yeah.
especially like during the pandemic, you don't want people to be touching you. But now it's over. Go back to passing the peace, letting people rise and greet each other, hug each other, tell them how much they love them, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
Pass the plate for the offertory and whatnot. The no contact thing is gone.
Right.
I mean, that's the equivalent of I don't know whether I told you this. The hotel we stayed at to be near the Greek Theater for the Elvis Costello show called to room service, and they set up a breakfast in picnic form. It was in a paper bag with little cardboard trays instead of rolling,
Oh,
the
yeah,
thing
the
in with the
art
nice plates and whatnot.
that you see on
These
TV and movies. Yeah.
people and businesses and churches that are still stuck in the pandemic, I feel sorry for them. I don't understand why they won't allow themselves out of it.
Yeah. Good point. That would be interesting to make a list of the things that are still like that. But yeah, I agree.
Um, let's see. Oh, big news in my neighborhood. The oh shoot, I should probably close the door so that this can't be heard outside, but we
Well,
have a next door neighbor.
let's
We
speak
don't
in
share a
tones.
we don't share a wall, but the next door neighbor has a 15-year-old son who refuses to close the window on his masturbatorium.
Oh
So
no.
the entire canyon hears his orgasm.
Oh,
And
bro.
I'll be so glad when they have picked up and moved. This is the same one who was bouncing a tennis ball off our building, and I had to tell him to stop. So it sounds a little something like this. You get three oh my gods in rapid succession, and then you get a 7-second primal scream. And then for some reason we hear, let go, let go. So I'm thinking that either someone is using him or coaching him or abusing him in some way. Well, it's Southern California. But I'm just so glad that I have heard that they're moving, so we won't have to put up with that any longer. I would complain, but how do you complain about something like that?
Just a
Uh,
boy.
uh, what do you tell the? Well, exactly. I exhibited the same lack of judgment when I was that age, but I think I would have had the good sense to close the window.
Yeah. Do you remember the movie Karate Kid? Did you ever see that?
I did not see it. I did not see it. No.
The late Pat Morita was this boy's mentor, wax on, wax off. It was all very, with the karate. I feel like maybe you should be a mentor for this young boy. Just kind of step in and give him some tips on how to
What you
behave.
mean? How to move to the left hand?
Well, at least, I don't know. In all the, what did you call it? Masturbatorium? What did
It's a Freudian term
okay.
for a room where self-abuse goes on,
Okay.
and that is a masturbatorium.
Masturbatorium. Okay, great.
Okay.
I don't remember ever yelling out in my in my days like that. Did you?
Proper Minnesotan doesn't do that. It gives out a little grunt, and that's
Yes,
we're done.
exactly. Okay, good, Kurt. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm it's suffice now. But Bob, where do you stand on that?
Once upon a time, Kel was a Gen Z oversharer without being Gen Z. And he said something to me about, refresh my memory. And I don't say this to embarrass you.
Okay.
Before a worldwide podcast audience. You said something about the last thing you do before you turn in the evening, as a married man at the time, was that you take off your wedding ring and put it on the nightstand. Do you still do that?
I do not. No, I don't do that.
Okay.
I think part of that too was I had just recently gotten married when we were together. And
Right.
I had also, this is a long story, but I had jammed my finger right after the wedding. So I resized my wedding ring because I couldn't get it on and off. Well, my finger obviously went back to normal, but the ring didn't. So it was loose. So it just, instead of loose falling it off my finger, I had taken it off and put it on and it got to be
what in the world could you have done of a carnal nature after your wedding to jam a finger? Man, you must be into the rough stuff.
They weren't related, you silly.
You must be into the rough trade consummation game. Good for you.
No, I always leave it on now.
Well, I just don't understand why anyone would consider taking it off. Why would here's something that has come up recently. I've composed a mental list to show you how little I have to do in retirement. I have a mental list of national network woman anchors who, for some reason, can't seem to decide whether or not they are married because the wedding ring is constantly off or on, off or on. Make up your mind. Are you married or are you not? Kate Baldwin of CNN, constantly without the wedding ring. Aaron, in the afternoon, Aaron Burnett. The woman on MSNBC at night, Rule, Stephanie Rule.
Okay.
There was one of the beautiful weathercasters here on local LA TV was
Okay.
without hers one day, and I almost, became excited that she might be back on the market. I mean,
So
isn't it enough that Leslie Van Houten is back on the market?
that's what you're checking out to see if they have a wedding ring, to see if you have a chance. Is that kind of what we're getting to here?
Look
But
at the left hand. That's exactly right.
if they keep going back and forth, you're confused and you can't carry on. I get it. I get it.
The traffic girl on Channel 7 here locally has never worn one. And I tune in each day to see when one appears because she can't last very long. I can't believe that some rich guy hasn't said to her, let me take you away from all this.
Okay, is it possible, and I'm just thinking out loud here, that they have the wedding ring on, and like you said, they take it off for the broadcast to get guys like you hot and heavy and hot and interested in these girls, and then they slip it back on after the broadcast, and they go back home. It's like leading two lives, as it were.
I can see a consultant actually suggesting that.
Right.
We need to, increase our single male 25 to 54
Exactly.
viewership. So would you mind taking the wedding ring off before you go on the air? Maybe that's part of the thinking. I don't know, but it sure as hell works
Right.
because these are attractive women, and it kind of is a buzzkill to see the wedding ring actually.
Our
And I wind up
yeah.
envious of the guy they're married to.
Our numbers are low in older podcasters. Let's get that number up again. And so they take the wedding ring off, and your ratings go up, I think.
Nicole Wallace used to be the case. Here's the deal with Nicole Wallace. Her husband is constantly a guest on her show, and she never identifies him as her husband. He works for the New York Times. They had a courtship, probably not nearly as torrid as mine, but whose could be. And she never identified him as being her romantic interest then or now. I don't get it. Who are they trying to fool? I think it's just such a insult to my intelligence. I had to go on Twitter and say that Nicole Wallace, this was back when they were dating, that Nicole Wallace, I said this on Twitter, Nicole Wallace needs to square with the American people. And when she announces him on the show to discuss a certain subject, she should introduce him with something that goes like, this is the guy I'm fucking.
That'll work.
I mean, really, shoot straight with the American people. We can take it.
Yeah,
because we know that you're.
Shouldn't say it, but it should be a scroll across the bottom of the screen. This is who I'm at.
That's even better. You're really working on all cylinders today. You must be hopped up on that prime drink.
Whatever we took away from Nico, I'm drinking now. Yes. I don't know. That's one of my nevers. I'm just not. I don't know if I'm not as into news as you are, because I couldn't, except for maybe a few anchors that are still doing it, that did it years ago, the Frank Vasileros and whatever. Yep. I know because they're still doing it 20 years later. But boy, you stay on top of these, mostly gals.
Are Frank and Amelia still together?
I believe so, yes. And I think they're still doing the nightly news.
Hey, this name sounds Minnesotan. And she's now appearing here on one of the TV stations. The name is Kristen Dahlgren. Does that name ring a bell? Doesn't that sound Minnesotan as hell?
Huh.
Kristen Dahlgren. I haven't looked her up yet, but I wouldn't be surprised to hear that she has a Minnesota station on her resume.
And she has a wedding ring, I'm sure.
I don't know. I haven't looked that closely. I just know that she's one of those field reporters, I guess you would call them.
Okay.
Kristen Dahlgren.
Well, we'll
And
do
then
some-
Channel 9 here does have a morning anchor who worked at CCO TV. I forget her name. We have Amy Powell. Do you remember a black lady reporter for Channel 11 named Amy Powell?
I do,
She's
yeah.
here.
Okay.
Investigative reporter in the Twin Cities, I think about it at Channel 11. Does the name Joel Grover ring a bell? Joel Grover is here.
Wasn't Paul Majors
Lots,
there? Paul Majors was there for a while too, wasn't he?
correct. And then retired.
Right.
And Ron Majors, of course, retired as well. I think both of them had a little of this in common. And that's not my prime drink gesture.
It's this. I got you.
Yeah, exactly. What are you imbibing with today?
More Northeast. I love my Northeast.
Okay, what's the ABV for that?
The ABV is 4.
Alcohol by volume.
4.7.
Oh, for goodness sake, that's like pop.
I know. I gotta up my game. I'll do
I
better.
don't understand why the kids are so into Bud Light and Coors Light. That's like
yeah.
pre-urine. That's not even alcohol.
Yeah, I know, right? I don't know. The kids like
It's never made any sense to me. Have a man's drink, you know?
Well, it is true. I think the college kids, I mean, I remember when I was in college, I drank a lot of Busch Light. So maybe it's the cost, right? It's like maybe they go for the cheapest thing and
Yeah,
whatever.
mine was Michelob Light for some reason. That seemed to be whenever I would visit northern Minnesota, Michelob Light used to be the deal. You know,
I prefer the Busch.
Your Russians know how to drink. I remember reading an interview with Mikhail Baryshnikov, and while he was being interviewed, so help me God, the man was drinking beer mixed with vodka.
Well,
He was pouring vodka into his beer or vice versa. That will set you free. It doesn't even taste
no,
good.
I see those upside down beers. Are they chaser? What are they when they're inside a drink? So there's this big drink and then a upside down beer tilted into it. I don't know what that is, but it sounds disgusting to me.
Yeah, I don't get it, but I have come to enjoy browsing in liquor stores more than I have. And I don't browse like Nicolas Cage and Leaving Las Vegas. I don't have a big shopping cart filled with, you know, filled bottles of all kinds of potent potables. But I enjoy seeing the kinds of things that areas of the world are putting out that will, put lead in your pencil.
I love the idea of going into a liquor store, them saying to you, "Sir, can we help you today?" And you say, No, I'm just browsing.
Yeah. Well, it's similar to when I was in Victoria's Secret at Rosedale Mall. I assume that they still have Victoria's Secret there. And I was browsing for a present for whoever the female love interest du jour was at the time. And the sales lady came over and said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "No, I'm just sniffing."
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to work the word bra into it, browsing for bras or something. Just,
No.
I mean, have you ever I can imagine you making the sales girls uncomfortable in those stores. I mean, did you ever say anything untoward or think, "Oh, you're about the size of the girl"?
See, Victoria's Secret had different rules.
Oh.
You could not go into the dressing area. You had to sit outside the dressing area. They didn't want all hell to break loose because so much of their products were so skimpy, right? But Victoria's Secret looks like Disneyland compared to Fredericks of Hollywood.
Oh.
Did you ever go into a Fredericks of Hollywood?
Yeah. There was one. God, where was it? God, maybe a mall up in, God, I want to say Duluth or someplace out of town. I remember going to seeing a Fredericks of Hollywood and being quite amazed by the whole thing.
It was just lurid.
Oh,
who needs tassels hanging off the points of the cups? Who needs like little zippers on the sides of the panties? I don't get it. I mean, the woman is not going to have a zipper accident, thank God.
Crotchless, right? Most of the stuff is crotchless.
Well, yeah, or involve some sort of hydraulic principle that is just.
You didn't think you'd have to read a manual to go in there.
Did you identify with what I said a while ago about picking up, belongings around the bed after a rogering,
Yeah.
trying to decide whose garments were whose, and like after a don't you think it's like the aftermath of a hockey brawl
Yeah, I
where
guess.
you go around picking up your gloves and helmets and sticks?
Well, and imagine doing it in the dark, it's like you're trying to figure things out,
Exactly.
feel things up and feel things out.
Please tell me that you close the window though in the spring and summer compared to the masturbatorium beside me.
There's an inside story there. When during the summer specifically, but almost all the time, I come up at night to go to bed, and the window is closed, but the shade is it's open. And I start to do my undress, what have you. And my wife always comes in and says, "Stop that. The neighbors will see you. The neighbors." And I'm like, I have nothing to hide. But, I guess we got to close. What's your take on that?
That's a Steely Dan lyric. Turn up the Eagles, the neighbors are listening. I think that's that's from Pretzel Logic. I
Yeah.
forget the title of the song, but I think that's from Pretzel Logic.
I got to go back and listen to some of my Steely Dan again. I know you gave me some CDs back in the day. I got to check this out again.
You know that I'm hearing from the Twin Cities that they've added a second show already. Eagles and Steely Dan at XL. Now, we're doing 2 concerts in Vancouver in a few weeks. So that's my concert allotment for the rest of the year. We're doing a Bonnie Raitt show and a Yo-Yo Ma concert in Vancouver, British Columbia.
That's what
late August, early
that's
September.
That's what the kids are listening to these days.
Well, we just have these niche artisanal tastes, and you got to go wherever the musicians are playing, right?
Right.
And we like to have a destination, some sort of entertainment or arts related show to fly toward.
Have you been to Vancouver?
No.
Oh,
I've heard it's fabulous. I've heard it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. I've been there once, but it was a quick trip, but it was fun.
What was the occasion?
Just a presentation that we were doing for work.
Oh, okay. When does your Star Spangled tour of the original slave states begin?
End of the month.
Nice.
Yeah.
Will you bring back a banner or a T-shirt or something that says "Go Cox Go"?
Yeah. Oh, that, or I'm just gonna say I visited this slave encampment, and this is all I got was this crummy T-shirt.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Would you happen to know what the University of South Carolina ladies teams are called? I mean, I can't believe
you're not gonna goad me into that one again. You got me.
I can't believe that they continue the Gamecocks direction mascot wise for the women.
It can't be Lady Cox, right?
You would think not, but
doesn't make sense.
It's something. It's just another subject that cries out for online research, which is another of my big hobbies.
But yeah, that's a whole other deal.
An article in the New Yorker recently on the subject of the glory days of smooth jazz sent me down a rabbit hole about online about a radio station that almost hired me in Orlando, Florida. One of the outstanding smooth jazz format stations was located in a suburb of Orlando called Winter Park. And the family that owned it, who I went down and was somewhat courted by, played golf with, sold it to a Spanish station about 10 years ago. And I'm only now finding out about it because I go online and find out what, the deal is. And so I think I'm going to be chatting about old times with one of the members of the family, surviving members of the family.
Okay.
About the family, and the stations are now in Bend, Oregon. Have you ever been to Oregon?
No, we've had speakers go there to speak at there's a community college out there that booked us for some stuff. So I haven't been, but I've heard it's beautiful.
Yeah, well, I hear that Bend, as a hub of Oregon commerce is quite the, trendy thing, on a par with any of the other bigger Oregon cities. And also, I think, isn't assisted suicide allowed there? I could kill two birds with one stone.
Oh my.
Go to look at the beautiful redwoods and end it all in one visit.
How far is that from Portland?
I don't know. I'll have to research it online, and I'll get back to you.
Because that's the other thing I was thinking about with out there. They just recently went away from having you gas up, the law that you have somebody gas up for you out there. You can't just pull in and fill up your own tank. You have to have somebody, an attendant, do it. And there's only two places.
That's the first I've heard of it, but you're making me want to go back and watch some episodes of Portlandia. Do you remember that show?
Yeah, Fred Armisen. Yeah,
it was Fred Armisen and Carrie Brownstein.
Very generational. It was a good one.
And I don't know whether Portland is still the hipster capital that it was.
No, it isn't.
But it got so bad that my middle child couldn't take it anymore. She had to leave.
Yeah, they say it's really going downhill fast. A lot of crime, a lot of homelessness, and people are leaving in droves.
Well, also a lot of boy, I hate to mention this, it'll only encourage the right wing, but Antifa. Oh. There are little tussles between Antifa and police, or Antifa and Proud Boys and whatnot in Portland. It's become quite the hotbed for that kind of rivalry. And I don't think, anybody wants to see that. That reminds me, I got to get to DC. If somebody would just tell me when the Proud Boys sentencings are, I would like to be in the courtroom to make sure that those animals are led back to their cages.
It does sound, Antifa sounds like a really nice, somebody you related to, old Antifa. She's
well, it's short for anti-fascist.
Right. But I'm just saying the polite. If you just hear it for the first time, it sounds very like a nice relative of some sort. But that's not.
Well, you know what they say, and I'll say this in closing. It'll be a nice return to square one editorially for the end of this podcast. But it ain't over till he puts on the cardigan. And with that, we bid you adieu. Maybe next Thursday, next week, whenever the next podcast is, I'll feel like describing the last straw that drove me from my current house of worship to my churchless state. If anyone knows of a church that is more of a church than a business, I would love to know about it, because that's where I'd like to land next, if there is such a thing. There may never be that kind of thing. I'm so old. Listen, I go back to pews with no padding, creaky, hard-ass wooden pews, and debates over whether the pastor should be salaried. I remember when the pastor depended on tithes and offerings for his livelihood. That's how far I go back.
Right.
I go back to cock-a-doodle-doo and snake handling and goat slaying. So I've seen all there is to see in the abuse of Christianity department. I need some place to enjoy on a Sunday. If anybody knows, and my my email address, please pass along that referral, as well as maybe an answer to my Better Call Saul question.
Are there a lot of pastors, a lot of religion, whatever it is, where the Sunday morning on television asking for money, are those still in exist? The Jim and Tammy phase of the world, is that still readily?
Sure. Right here in LA, Bel Air Presbyterian buys time on local TV on Sunday mornings, and you should see their pastor. He comes slinking out in skinny jeans and an untucked shirt, and he's going to tell you all about Jesus. Screw that. I want somebody who looks like he was, imbued with the Spirit. I don't want to see a male model trying to tell me about Jesus. Come on, man.
Jesus.
Huh?
Tell me a little story about
Bel Air.
Bel Air.
How Christian do you think it gets in Bel Air?
Wait,
right across the street from UCLA.
That sounds like a parody. That sounds like a parody on the Prince of Bel Air. You had to say the pastor from Bel Air, the preach.
But in answer to your question, yes, there's still televangelists and live and taped Joel Osteen, services. And there's a former DJ from the Bay Area who opposed my show in San Jose, who is now a televangelist named Perry Stone, who is making the rounds on Sunday morning TV. It's a racket, man.
And it'll
It's a
keep really
racket.
keep going. I mean, you think eventually, I mean, I guess I always say this, that people will, the generation that would not believe in that will get of age, that these places will die out, but they keep going on and on and on.
Yep.
I guess there's
Well,
always,
I've got to put on the cardigan, gentlemen. So it's like getting back into your Clark Kent clothes after being Superman. And so I'll need to take my leave of you and wish you a great week and chat with you 1 week from today or whenever you like.
all right, sounds good. We'll see you soon.
So long to our viewers as well. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Bob and Kel CleverCast, coming to you live from the entertainment industry work stoppage capital of the world. Over and out.